3 weeks ago, I learned my marriage was running on a script I hadn't written. It was a Thursday that looked like every other Thursday. I'm Noah Reed, project estimator for a small construction firm, home late boots in the tray dinner from a takeout box. My wife Lena was unusually bright, the performative kind of cheerful that says everything's fine. Around midnight, we kissed goodnight. She went to shower. I started the dishwasher. Her phone lay face down on the kitchen counter, charging. It buzzed once, then again. Then in a quick little drum roll that didn't sound like calendar alerts. I should have ignored it. Instead, I turned it over. The contact name made me laugh once without humor: office emergency contact. The preview lines were not emergencies. They were practiced sweetness and logistics talk of missing last time, a specific hotel Friday after 9 if traffic is light. I opened the thread. My hands stayed steady the way hands do when the brain chooses to finish a job before the heart arrives. 6 months of messages, planning, cover stories, running jokes about how lucky we both were to miss the signs. The other sender's name hid behind initials, but context removed the mask: Graham Cole, her boss. Water hissed down the hall. In the bathroom, Lena sang soft and off-key. I scrolled while she sang. Work notes slid into compliments, then confessions, then hard logistics, room numbers, check-in windows, excuses polished to look like truth. Dates lined up with nights she'd claimed late close. A few jokes about predictable Noah-like predictability were a fault, and not the reason you trust a person enough to build a life. Anger arrived fast. A colder feeling sat beside it. I didn't storm the bathroom. That would give her a scene and a costume to wear. I forwarded screenshots to my email, every page timestamp and hotel name, then set the phone exactly where I'd found it. The water stopped. I rinsed a glass. She came back smiling, kissed my cheek, and thanked me for a quiet night. When she slept, I watched the ceiling fan until the room clicked into focus. I wasn't shattered. I was organized. That worried me and steadied me. Morning brought a temple kiss, and the line I now heard differently: "I'll be home late deadline." I poured coffee and said, "Do what you need to." She smiled like I'd passed a test. At 7:42, I opened a new folder on my laptop called Truth. Screenshots went in. I added a spreadsheet. Columns for dates, supposed late nights, places the messages named. I'm no detective, but my job has taught me to make numbers reconcile. By 8:30, patterns had a face. At 9, I searched his name. 15 seconds later, a company headshot stared back: Graham Cole, Senior Account Director. Biography lines about hands-on leadership. A charity page showed him with a woman and 2 kids in matching shirts: Team Cole. Her name in the caption: Emily. Recognition, not rage, hit first: the shock of meeting another person in a story they never asked to join. I planned the first call the way I plan bids, with anchor points. Say my name, state the connection, offer dates, not accusations, ask whether anything matches changes she's seen, ask if she wants evidence forwarded, then stop talking. Before dialing, I tried to talk myself out of what I'd read. Misread tone. Can't stop thinking about last night doesn't mean client dinner ran long. Mentorship. The Marriott doesn't mentor at 11:47 p.m. One lapse, 6 months, is a routine. At noon, Lena texted Ty tonight, "Pad CEW for you." A month ago, I'd have called it thoughtfulness. Now it felt like choreography. I replied, "Sure," because I needed time more than I needed triumph. I lunched in my truck with a notebook. 3 columns: what I know, what I think, what I can prove. Keeping guesses away from proof kept me honest, and stopped me from saying something I'd have to walk back later. When I finished, the first column was heavy enough that the second could stay light. Mid-afternoon brought another running late don't wait. I typed, "Be safe," turned my phone face down, and finished the spreadsheet. At 5, I cleaned the counters. It sounds silly, but arranging a room before impact helps me breathe. No loose ends, no distractions someone could grab and throw back at me. At 6, I found a number tied to that charity page, a public contact for volunteers. Email felt too cold. Voicemail bombs land at bad hours. A call meant I could deliver facts and be present if she needed a voice on the other end. The front door opened. Lena stepped in with the same tote she always uses when she stays late. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, flipped her phone face down by reflex. We ate takeout and half-watched a show. She laughed in the right places. I answered like a man who hadn't spent the afternoon building a timeline of his own undoing. At 9:12, she yawned and went to bed. I washed dishes, dried my hands, and stepped onto the back stoop where the porch light hums and you can smell cut grass from 3 yards over. I added a contact, Emily Cole Possible. I entered the number. I waited with it. This would be the last moment to pick the easier path, pretend I didn't know, start a fight over dishes, call endurance wisdom, and swallow the truth. The easier path would buy a week of quiet and sell a year of self-respect. I tapped the screen. 1 ring, 2, 3, a click. A calm voice. Hello. Hi, I said, surprised that my voice sounded steady. My name is Noah Reed. I think we should talk if you've got a minute. A careful silence. Talk about what? I watched my reflection in the dark window and gave her the first clean fact. About Graham, I said. And my wife. Somewhere inside a phone buzzed on a charger. I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the quiet yard and waited to hear which way the next part of my life would go. While the phone warmed my palm, I opened the truth folder and added a note to myself, do not improvise, do not accuse, do not rescue. It read like a job site checklist on purpose. Feelings chase you into corners. Rules walk you out. I cross-checked the messages with Lena's calendar. The team-building Saturday aligned with a room he praised for extra pillows. The client dinner that erased our anniversary matched a midnight line about how worth the risk felt. I pasted those into the sheet, and for the first time in weeks, my mind stopped spinning. Facts are a floor. I also wrote a promise. No public scenes, no shouting in doorways, no midnight ultimatums that become stories people tell. If this ended, it would end like a beam-cut clean square measured. I listened to the refrigerator hum and a freight horn 2 streets over, and realized I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of wasting another month in a house where truth wasn't welcome. That made the choice simple. I lifted the phone and dialed. Emily Cole's voice was steady, polite, and tired in a way only someone living with quiet suspicion can be. When I told her who I was and mentioned the name Graham, there was a long silence. Then she asked softly, "Is this about work or something else?" "Something else," I said. "I wish it wasn't." I explained step by step what I had found. I avoided adjectives, avoided anger, just the facts, the contact name, the messages, the timestamps, the hotel room numbers. I told her that I had screenshots but hadn't confronted anyone yet. Her breathing changed. Then she said, "I need to see them." I asked if she wanted me to send them right away. She hesitated. "Can you give me 5 minutes?" We hung up. I stared at the yard. The porch light buzzed louder than usual. 5 minutes later, her text came through, "Send them." When I did, there was no reply for 20 minutes. I sat on the back steps with my coffee watching moths circle the light and counting seconds. When the phone finally rang again, her voice shook, but there was steel in it too. "I went through everything twice," she said. "He's been lying for months. You and I both deserve to look them in the eye." We agreed to meet on Friday at my house. I told her Lena always came home around 6. She would arrive at 6:30. I'd tell Lena a coworker was stopping by. Emily would walk in with me and we'd let the truth do its work. It was calm, almost professional planning. The kind that comes after every emotional fuse has already burned out. Friday came with strange clarity. Lena texted at 5, heading home early. "Want me to pick up dinner?" I replied, "Sure. Something simple." When she got home, she was glowing, relaxed humming while she unpacked takeout containers. She was still convinced her secret life fit neatly behind polite smiles. We ate. She talked about team goals and leadership meetings. The irony made every word feel scripted. At 6:25, I rinsed my plate and told her someone's coming by for a quick pickup. Work stuff. She barely looked up from her phone. "Sure. I'll be in the living room." I looked at her one last time, wondering whether she ever saw me beyond convenience. Then headlights cut across the window. Right on schedule. I stepped outside. Emily stood by her car, shoulders squared. She was taller than I'd expected, dressed sharply, eyes red but focused. We exchanged a nod. You ready? I asked. As ready as I'll ever be. We walked to the door. The evening air smelled like rain on concrete. My hand didn't shake when I turned the knob. Inside, Lena was still on her phone. Hey, I said casually, my colleague's here. She looked up and the world changed. First confusion, then recognition, then panic. Her phone slipped slightly before she caught it. Who is this? She asked, already defensive. This is Emily, I said. She's been wanting to meet you for a while. Emily stepped forward, every word precise. My husband talks about you constantly. Late nights, hotel projects, your emergency calls. The color drained from Lena's face. She stammered, I don't know what this is. I cut her off. You do. Emily is Graham Cole's wife. The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Lena froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She looked at Emily like she was staring at a ghost. That's impossible, she said finally. You don't know anything about my work. Emily laughed short and bitter. Actually, I know quite a lot, especially about the late nights at the Marriott. That's not true, Lena snapped. We're colleagues. Everything's professional. I leaned on the doorway, calm. Professional. Is that what you call texting him 47 times a day after midnight? Lena's face twisted. You went through my phone. I didn't need to, I said. Emily already had the same messages from his. Emily began reading from her phone, her voice trembling only slightly. Tuesday, 11th, 47 p.m. Can't stop thinking about tonight. Wednesday, 12th, 15 a.m. Wish I could stay instead of going home to him. Thursday, 10:30 p.m. 2 more days until we can be alone again. Lena's hands started to shake. Stop, she whispered. Just stop. Why, I asked. You wrote them. It's not what you think, she said quickly. It's complicated. Complicated. Emily's tone cut through the air. You mean like when you told my husband you were thinking of leaving your marriage, or when you joked about how clueless we both were? Lena's breath caught. He told you that. He didn't have to, Emily said. I read it, every word. Lena turned to me, desperate. You have to believe me. She's twisting everything. I pulled out my phone and opened my screenshots. No one's twisting anything. I have your messages word for word. From your phone. The night you took a shower after we were together. Her eyes widened in horror. She remembered that night, the timing, the casual routine that wasn't casual at all. How long have you known, she asked quietly. 3 weeks, I said. Long enough to hear every lie sound the same. Emily closed her phone. My husband thought I'd never noticed the perfume that wasn't mine, the gym trips that started 6 months ago, the extra cologne. Lena's voice broke. It just happened. We didn't plan it. You didn't fight it either, I said. You planned hotel rooms. You planned excuses. You laughed about how I'd never find out. Tears welled up, but her eyes were calculating behind them. What do you want from me to humiliate me? Emily and I shared a look. We want truth, I said, for once. Lena took a breath, straightened, and the tears vanished. The familiar coldness returned. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing him. But it's not some dirty affair. We have feelings for each other. Emily scoffed. You're destroying 2 families for feelings. You wouldn't understand, Lena shot back. Your marriage might be perfect, but mine hasn't been for years. He's distant. Cold. I tried to talk to him, but he never listens. It was almost impressive how fast she pivoted to blame. Distant, I said quietly. You mean the date nights you canceled because you were working? The weekends I planned that you spent at hotels? That's exactly what I mean, she said, raising her voice. You think throwing money at problems fixes them. You never actually talk. Emily stepped forward. Her patience gone. So your answer to feeling lonely was to make 2 other people feel the same. My kids ask why their dad's gone every weekend. Should I tell them he was with you? That's not my responsibility, Lena snapped. No, I said. It was your choice. The mask slipped. For the first time, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Still proud, but cornered. This isn't about revenge, I said. It's about ending the lies. Tonight, everything changes. Her eyes darted toward the door like escape was still an option. She was wrong. And in that silence, 3 people standing in a living room built on deceit, I realized we were all about to watch the lives we thought we knew collapse in real time. The next move would decide everything. Lena stood there, frozen arms crossed tightly across her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. Emily's phone screen glowed faintly between us, lighting the silence in soft blue. "I can explain," Lena finally said. Her voice cracked on the word can, but the rest came out sharp. "You're both acting like this was some grand betrayal. It wasn't. It just happened. You wouldn't understand what it's like to feel invisible." I stared at her. "Invisible?" "Yes," she snapped. "You come home, turn on a game, talk about work, then fall asleep in that chair. I wanted connection, Noah. Someone who saw me." Emily let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "So you looked for connection in my husband?" Lena's eyes darted toward her. "You don't get to judge me. You don't know what my marriage was like." Emily took a step forward. "I know exactly what mine was like until you decided to join it." For a moment, no one said anything. The clock ticked loudly from the kitchen wall. Lena exhaled hard, the defensive energy draining out of her. "Look," she said softer now, "I made mistakes, okay? I got caught up in something that felt real, but it doesn't have to destroy everything. We can fix this." I shook my head slowly. "You're not listening, Lena. There's nothing left to fix." She took a step toward me. "Please, don't do this. You don't mean that." "Actually, I said I do." Her voice rose again, desperate now. "So that's it. After everything, you just throw me out over one mistake." "One mistake," Emily said, incredulous. 6 months of planning, lying, sneaking around. "That's enough," Lena yelled. "You've had your say, both of you." I kept my tone calm. "This isn't about yelling. It's about truth." She glared at me. "Truth? You think you're some hero now? You've never been perfect, Noah. You don't know what it's like to feel stuck." "Maybe not," I said. "But I know what it's like to stay loyal when it's hard. I know what it's like to believe someone even when they stop earning it." She didn't reply, her jaw trembled. Emily slipped her phone into her bag. "I think I've heard enough," she said quietly. She turned to me. "Thank you for showing me. For not letting me keep living in the dark." "Are you going to tell him I asked?" Her expression hardened. "I don't need to. He'll know when he walks into an empty house tonight." She gave Lena one last look, half pity, half contempt, then left her heels clicking against the floor. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt heavier than it should have. Now it was just Lena and me. She sank onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. "You just ruined my life." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Her shoulders shook, but I wasn't sure if it was from crying or rage. "Do you even love me anymore?" I took a long breath. "I loved who you were, before all this. But the person standing here now, I stopped. I don't recognize her." She looked up, mascara streaked across her face. "I can change. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want." I shook my head. "You didn't just break trust, Lena. You buried it." She stood trembling. "So that's it. You're just done." "Yeah," I said. "I think I've been done for a while. I just didn't know it until now." Her mouth opened, then closed. "You can't be serious." "I am." She started pacing. "Where am I supposed to go? You're really going to throw me out like trash?" "I'm not throwing you anywhere. I'm just not letting you stay in a house built on lies." Her anger flared. "You think you're so righteous? You went through my phone. You invaded my privacy." I almost laughed. "You destroyed our marriage, Lena. I read the evidence." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "You planned this. You waited to humiliate me." "No," I said. "I waited to make sure I wasn't crazy." That stopped her. The fight drained from her body. She whispered, "What are you going to tell people?" "The truth." Her eyes widened. "No, please, don't. I'll lose my job." "You already lost my respect," I said. "Your job isn't my problem." Tears welled up again. "Noah, please. We can start over. I'll end it with him tonight." "You already ended it," I said. "When you started it." I walked to the bedroom, grabbed 2 garbage bags from the closet, and began filling them with her things methodically, quietly. She followed me. "What are you doing?" "Helping you pack." "This is insane," she said, voice shaking. "You're overreacting." "I'm reacting," I said, tying the first bag shut. "Big difference." She tried to grab my arm. "Stop. Just stop." I said I was sorry. I looked her straight in the eye. Sorry isn't a time machine. For the first time that night, she didn't have an answer. I carried the bags to the front door and set them down. She stood behind me, silent. The air felt heavy, like the house itself knew it was watching something end. I'll give you until tomorrow to find somewhere to go, I said. You can stay at a hotel, or maybe Graham's place if his wife hasn't changed the locks yet. Her face twisted in pain. You're cruel! No, I said softly. I'm done being kind to someone who took advantage of it. She didn't move. I opened the door and waited. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she grabbed her purse, walked past me, and stepped out into the night. The door closed quietly behind her. I stood there for a while staring at the space she'd just left. The silence in the house was thick, unnatural, but also strangely peaceful. I looked around at the living room, the half-empty closet, the still spinning ceiling fan. Every sound that used to remind me of her suddenly felt like mine again. When I finally sat down, I realized I wasn't angry anymore, just empty. But emptiness, I realized, wasn't always bad. Sometimes it's just the space where peace starts to grow. I leaned back in the chair she used to complain about, closed my eyes, and let the quiet fill every corner of the house. Tomorrow the world would find out what happened. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, I was finally free. The morning after Lena left, I woke to a house that sounded different. No hairdryer, no perfume, no morning rush, just birds outside and the low hum of the fridge. For a few minutes, I sat on the edge of the bed trying to understand what alone meant again. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. Her toothbrush was still in the holder, but her phone charger was gone. She'd really left. I thought about calling her, but stopped myself. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't start another argument, and the time for words had passed. Instead, I opened my laptop. The truth folder waited on the desktop, its name now feeling heavier than when I'd typed it. Inside were the screenshots, the timeline, the receipts. 6 months of evidence, 6 months of a story that had just ended. But part of me knew this wasn't the real ending. At 8:10, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. It was Emily. I hope I'm not bothering you, she said. Not at all, I replied. How are you holding up? Still processing, she said quietly. He came home last night. I didn't say a word, just showed him the messages. He tried to explain, of course, but when I mentioned you were there too, he froze. I pictured the scene. The look of panic I'd seen on Lena's face must have mirrored his. What did he do? I asked. He left, she said simply. Took a suitcase and went to his brother's. I called a lawyer this morning. There was a long pause before she spoke again. How about you? She's gone, I said. I don't know where. Probably with him. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said. You didn't do this. No, she said, but we're both paying for it. That was true. Betrayal doesn't end when the confrontation does, it just changes shape. Before hanging up, she said, whatever happens next, don't let her rewrite the story. People like that always try to become the victim. I won't, I promised. By noon, the first cracks began to show in her perfect facade. Her company email pinged mine an auto-forward from a shared project folder. A short message sat at the top. Effective immediately, Lena Harper is on personal leave. All project inquiries will be redirected to management. I stared at it for a moment, then closed the tab. I wasn't proud, but I did feel a small measure of justice. An hour later, she called. I didn't pick up. The voicemail came seconds later. Noah, please don't do this. I know you're angry, but we can still fix this. I've already told HR I need time off. I just need you to talk to me. Please. Her voice cracked halfway through, then steadied like she'd practiced before hitting record. I deleted it. That evening, my brother Alex dropped by. He'd heard enough through the family grapevine to know something was wrong. She really did it, huh? He asked, leaning against the kitchen counter. Yeah, I said, with her boss. He let out a low whistle. Man, you always were too patient for your own good. I thought patience was supposed to be a virtue. Not when someone's robbing you blind, he said. You gonna tell Mom? Eventually, I sighed. After the paperwork's done. He nodded, poured himself some coffee, and looked around the half-empty living room. We'll fix this place up. Make it yours again. That night, I walked through each room, one by one, collecting the leftovers of her Life Hair Clips receipts, half-used candles. Everything went into a cardboard box labeled Return. It wasn't anger that drove me, just clarity. I didn't want reminders of something that wasn't real. I set the box by the door right beside the bags I'd packed for her. Saturday morning, I drove to the small legal office downtown. The lawyer, Mr. Jacobs, was older, calm, the kind of man who'd seen hundreds of marriages die and no longer pretended to be shocked. He flipped through my folder in silence, nodding slowly. "You've been thorough," he said finally. "I'm in construction," I replied. "We learn early to document everything." "Smart," he said. "It'll make this easy. You're filing under adultery, correct?" "Yes." "Good," he said, making notes. "The evidence is airtight. Screenshots, hotel receipts, time logs. She won't contest it." "I don't want to destroy her," I said quietly. "I just don't want to keep pretending." He gave a small, sympathetic smile. "Pretending is a kind of slow death, Mr. Reed. This will set you free." When I left the office, the sky had darkened. A storm was moving in from the west. Fitting, I thought. As I drove home, my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I almost ignored it, but instinct made me answer. It was Graham. "I just wanted to talk man-to-man," he started. "Things got out of hand." "Out of hand," I repeated. "That's what you call it." "I know it looks bad," he said, "but I care about her. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Then why did you—" He went quiet. Finally, he said, "I guess I thought we both deserved to be happy." I laughed bitterly. "You built your happiness on someone else's foundation, Graham. Don't act surprised when it collapses." He sighed. "Look, my wife's already filing. I'm about to lose everything. I just wanted you to know I didn't plan to ruin your life." "You didn't ruin it," I said. "You cleared the fog. I should probably thank you for that." He didn't reply. The line went dead. That night, thunder rolled through the sky. I sat in the dark living room with a cup of tea, listening to the rain hit the windows. Somewhere across town, Lena was probably doing the same, except now, for once, the storm she'd created wasn't mine to endure. I looked around the room, empty spaces, silent walls, but honest silence this time. When you love someone, you think you're protecting them from the truth. But the truth doesn't destroy love. Lies do. I'd finally learned the difference. Tomorrow I would send her the divorce papers. Tonight I would sleep. Alone, but free. The divorce papers were sent on Monday morning. I signed every line calmly, the way you'd sign for a delivery you knew was coming. By noon, they were on their way to her. For the first time in months, my phone was silent. No running late messages, no fake check-ins from hotel parking lots, just silence. I spent the morning at work pretending everything was normal, but word travels fast in small companies. People noticed. A few whispered questions came my way, quiet, sympathetic, intrusive, in the way small-town gossip always is. By afternoon, my manager called me into his office. "Hey," he said, his tone careful. "I heard about everything." "You doing okay?" "I'm fine, I lied." He nodded. "Listen, for what it's worth, people respect how you're handling it. Quiet, professional. Not everyone could do that." I smiled faintly. Yelling doesn't build anything. When I left work that day, I stopped at the park instead of going home. There's a bench near the lake where I used to sit with Lena on Sunday mornings. I sat there now watching the water ripple in the wind. For a while, I tried to remember the version of us that used to exist. The one that shared coffee and plans and little dreams that never survived daylight. But the more I tried, the less real it felt. Like I was remembering someone else's marriage entirely. My phone buzzed again around 5:30. A text from Emily. "He's been fired." I blinked, reading it twice. What I wrote back. "Company cited misconduct. HR got wind of everything. They found the hotel receipts on his company card." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then another message appeared. "I told them the truth when they called me. I'm not covering for him anymore." I typed back, "Good for you." A minute later, she replied, "You should know they might call your wife, too. She's part of the investigation." My first reaction wasn't anger. It was inevitability. Actions always catch up. Sooner or later, someone has to pay the bill. The next day, I got a voicemail from Lena. I didn't want to listen, but curiosity won. "Noah, they fired him. HR says they're reviewing my position next. I'm begging you, please don't talk to anyone at work about this. It's my career. It's all I have left." Her voice was thinner than I'd ever heard it. The same woman who used to speak with confidence now sounded like someone watching her life slide through her fingers. I didn't reply. That evening, Emily called again. "I filed officially today," she said. "Divorce papers. My attorney says it's clean. No custody battles, no drama. How do you feel?" I asked. "Lighter," she said. Then, after a pause, "I'm getting there." "Good," she said softly. You deserve to breathe again. By Friday, HR had called Lena in for a meeting. She must have seen it coming because she texted me early that morning. They're making me resign. I don't have anyone else to talk to. Please, can we just meet? I stared at the message for a long time. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the screenshots, the nights alone, the laughter she shared with him while lying to me. I deleted the message. At noon, Emily texted again. He's out. They escorted him out of the building. She's next. It felt strange watching justice play out without lifting a finger. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just watched. Because when people destroy themselves, you don't have to do anything but step out of the way. That evening, I got home to find an envelope in the mailbox, her handwriting on the front. Inside was a letter. Real paper, not a text or email. Noah, I know you hate me and I don't blame you. I hate myself too. I've lost my job, my reputation, my friends. Everything I built is gone. But what hurts most is knowing I did it to myself. You didn't deserve any of this. You were good to me even when I stopped being good to you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say that I finally understand what love should have looked like. I hope you find someone who treats you the way you treated me. Lena. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the counter. Not out of nostalgia, but respect for finality. The next morning, I dropped it in the drawer with the divorce papers. A week later, I met Emily for coffee. Not a date, just two people who'd survived the same storm. She looked more rested, calmer. He moved in with his brother, she said. Apparently job hunting isn't going well. I can't say I'm surprised, I said. She smiled faintly. It's strange, isn't it? How they both thought they'd win. Like cheating would give them a better life. They built it on lies, I said. Lies don't hold weight. We sat in silence for a moment, watching people walk by the cafe window. Then she asked, do you ever wonder if they regret it? I think they regret getting caught, I said. Not the act itself. People like that only feel guilt when the mirror turns on them. Emily nodded slowly. You're probably right. Before we parted, she said something that stayed with me. We didn't lose. They did. Because no matter how broken it got, we still chose truth. That's something they'll never understand. That night, I drove home with the windows down, letting the cool air fill the car. For the first time in months, I didn't feel bitterness. Just quiet. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was peace. And peace, I realized, was better than happiness. Because peace lasts. 2 weeks after the coffee with Emily, life settled into a strange kind of stillness. Not comfort, just stillness. The house no longer echoed with footsteps that didn't match mine. The scent of her perfume had finally faded from the hallway. The framed photos were gone from the shelves, replaced by blank spaces that looked cleaner than I expected. Every morning I brewed a single cup of coffee instead of two. Every night I locked the door and slept through without checking the clock for when she might get home. The world didn't fall apart without her. It just got quieter. One afternoon I got a call from the HR department at Lena's company. The voice on the other end was formal, polite, cautious. Mr. Reed, the woman said, we're conducting a review regarding professional misconduct involving Ms. Harper and Mr. Cole. We'd like to verify a few details you may have provided to our legal liaison. I confirmed what I could: dates, screenshots, hotel names. I didn't add color or commentary, just facts. When we finished, the woman hesitated before saying, I'm sorry for what you've been through. It must have been difficult. I paused. It was worse pretending I didn't know. She exhaled softly. I understand. 2 days later, I saw the article online. Regional director dismissed over workplace relationship allegations. The story didn't name Lena, but it didn't have to. Her initials were enough. I didn't feel joy or revenge or satisfaction. Just a deep, tired relief. Justice doesn't always need applause. Sometimes it just needs silence. The next week, Lena texted again. They fired me. HR said they had to make an example. I have nowhere to go. I read it once, then put the phone down. I thought about replying something kind, maybe neutral, but what could I possibly say that would make sense now? Every bridge between us had burned slowly, plank by plank. All I could do was let the ashes cool. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and opened a blank notebook. On the first page, I wrote 2 words: moving forward. I wasn't sure what it meant yet, but it felt like a beginning. Emily called the next evening. You saw the article, she asked. Yeah, I can't lie, it felt good for about 5 minutes. Then it just felt Heavy. I know I said, justice isn't as sweet as people think. It just gives you your balance back. She was quiet for a while, then said, my kids asked where their dad went. I told them he made bad choices. They nodded and went back to their homework. Kids are stronger than we think. You did the right thing, I told her. So did you, she said softly. You could have blown up at everyone, made it public. Instead, you stayed human. Some days that felt harder than it sounds. She laughed faintly. Yeah, but it's who you are, Noah. After we hung up, I realized she was right. I didn't need to win. I just needed to stop losing myself. Weeks passed. The divorce hearings moved quickly. Her lawyer didn't contest anything. How could she? I had everything documented, the messages, the lies, the receipts. When the judge asked if I had anything to add, I simply said, no, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself. And it did. 3 signatures later, I was a free man again. I walked out of the courthouse with the paperwork in my hand and sunlight on my face. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry, confused, or suspicious. I just was. It felt like standing at the edge of a clearing after months of walking through fog. That night, I got one final message from Lena. The divorce is final. I hope someday you can forgive me. Not for me, but for you. You deserve peace. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. It wasn't an apology I needed to hear. It was confirmation that she finally understood. Forgiveness wasn't something I could offer her. It was something I was learning to give myself. The next morning, I went for a drive. No destination, no map, just the open road. The town rolled by in slow motion, the diner where we used to have breakfast, the bookstore where she bought her first anniversary gift, the park bench, where I'd once waited for her on nights she never showed up. Every landmark used to hurt. Now they just existed. By sunset, I found myself at the edge of the lake again, the same spot where I'd sat the day I sent the divorce papers. The water was calm this time, glassy and still. I took out my notebook and wrote, some endings arrive quietly. Some justice comes without noise. Some peace doesn't need applause. I closed it and sat there until the last light faded. When I finally drove home, I didn't feel like a man who'd lost a marriage. I felt like someone who'd finally remembered who he was before it all began. Tomorrow would be ordinary again, and that for once was enough. 6 months later, the man in the mirror finally looked familiar again. No more sleepless eyes, no more tight jawline hiding resentment. Just me, calm, steady, alive. I'd moved into a smaller house by the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine in every sense. Every nail, every photo, every decision reflected me, not a life built for two that only one person was living honestly. There were mornings I still woke up expecting to hear her footsteps or the sound of her keys on the counter, but the silence that followed wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. Peace had a strange sound like wind through the blinds and the kettle boiling in the kitchen. A few weeks after settling in, I received a letter from my lawyer, the final confirmation that all property transfers and settlements were complete. It was over officially, legally, emotionally. I put the papers in a folder, closed it, and filed it away under past. That evening, I went out for groceries and ran into Emily again, this time in the produce aisle of all places. She looked different, lighter. Noah, she said, smiling. Wow, you look good. Trying my best, I said, laughing. How are the kids? They're adjusting, she said. Better than I expected, honestly. I think they see me happier now. I nodded. Happiness is contagious, even quiet happiness. We stood there for a moment, both of us holding baskets, realizing how far we'd come from that night of chaos and confrontation. I still can't believe how everything unfolded, she said softly. 6 months ago, I couldn't even get out of bed. Now I'm planning a trip with my kids. Where to? Somewhere with no cell service, she said, grinning. Just trees and peace. That sounds perfect. She tilted her head slightly. And you, any big plans? I shrugged, just learning how to live slow again. That's harder than it sounds, she said. I'm getting better at it. That weekend, I decided to visit the lake again, my quiet ritual spot. The same bench, the same stretch of still water. But this time, I wasn't there to think about what I'd lost. I was there to appreciate what remained. I took a deep breath, the air crisp and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was standing in the ruins of something. I was standing in the foundation of something new. I thought about the lessons that betrayal leaves behind, how it strips you down, exposes everything false, then leaves you with only truth. And truth, as painful as it can be, is also freeing. I didn't hate Lena anymore. In some strange way, I was grateful. Her choices had burned down the illusion I'd been living in. And once the fire was out, I found something stronger underneath myself. One afternoon, my brother Alex came over to help paint the living room. Halfway through, rolling a coat of deep blue across the wall, he asked, "So are you ever going to start dating again?" I laughed. "You sound like Mom." "She's been asking me to ask you," he said. "Said she's got a coworker's cousin who's perfect for you." "I think I'll pass," I said, smiling. "For now, at least." Alex leaned on the roller. "You're not afraid of love again, are you?" I paused. "No, just not in a rush to mistake attention for connection again." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's fair. You deserve real peace this time." That word again, peace. The one thing I hadn't known I'd been chasing all along. A few days later, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a small box with no note, just a familiar wedding band cut cleanly in half. It was Lena's. I stood there holding the cold metal in my palm. For a moment, memories flickered, the vows, the laughter, the quiet mornings before everything went wrong. Then I smiled. Because this time it didn't hurt. It just meant she'd finally let go, too. I placed the ring halves in the same drawer as the divorce papers, then closed it for good. Months rolled by. I rebuilt my days with simple things: morning jogs, late-night reading, fixing old furniture. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years, even joined a weekend hiking group. It wasn't about starting over. It was about continuing with honesty this time. Sometimes I'd get messages from people who'd heard about what happened, old coworkers, mutual friends, even strangers. They'd say, "I don't know how you handled it so calmly." And I'd always tell them the same thing. You don't get stronger by avoiding storms. You get stronger by standing in the rain until it stops. A few months later, Emily called again. Her divorce had finalized. She sounded cheerful, genuinely free. "We should meet again soon," she said. "Not to talk about the past, just to talk." "I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. There was no rush, no expectation. Just two people who had survived something heavy and found light again. That night, as I locked up and turned off the lights, I looked around my quiet house, the warm glow of the lamp, the faint sound of crickets outside, the fresh paint still smelling faintly of new beginnings. I smiled to myself. 6 months ago, I was drowning in betrayal. Tonight, I was breathing freely again. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the man whose wife had cheated. I felt like the man who'd finally come home to himself. Some endings are disguised as collapse, but they're really construction. You don't lose everything when the truth comes out, only what was never real to begin with. I closed my notebook on those words, turned off the lamp, and let the peace of a clean slate carry me into sleep. Tomorrow I wouldn't look back. Tomorrow would simply be mine. Here's the next story. I told myself I was being dramatic. That's what I do when numbers at work don't add up. I look again, and usually the anomaly disappears. But this wasn't a spreadsheet. This was my wife zipping a roller bag for the 6th overnight in 3 weeks, and me leaning on the bedroom doorframe pretending my stomach wasn't twisting itself into rope. Her name is Isla. We've been married 9 years. She's 35, a rising star in marketing who can glide into a room and change the temperature. I'm Noah, a financial analyst who believes in receipts, timelines, and boring truths. "Eyes up here, mister," she said, catching my reflection as she folded a blazer into the bag. I grinned because that's what partners do when the script calls for it. "How does this sound?" she asked, lowering her voice into presentation mode. "Fourth quarter projections show a 15% lift." I gave her a thumbs up. "You'll nail it." She crossed the room, kissed my forehead, and murmured about building our future. Lately, she touches her stomach when she says that, a small gesture from 8 months of trying for a baby. After she left, the house was lit and empty. The silence used to mean peace. Now it sounded like a question I couldn't answer. Patterns kept circling me. The immediate showers when she returned before any hello. The new passcode on her phone. Calls that migrated to the garage voice, dropping to a level that made even the water heater seem like it was eavesdropping. A lighter perfume I didn't recognize. None of it was proof. All of it was a trend. I told myself the promotion track explains it. Senior title travel pressure. She's running hot. I'm reading the wrong columns. But the part of me that survives by reconciling accounts would not let go. When numbers don't reconcile, something's hiding. That night I tried the adult thing, sleep. At midnight I gave up, opened the laptop she'd left on the dresser and stared at the login screen. The password was the same as always, our anniversary. The calendar opened. Friday, Peninsula Hotel client presentation. Room blocked for prep. I sat there until my eyes watered, scrolling and pretending I had a reason to be in that calendar that did not involve fear. I closed the laptop, set it back exactly where it had been, and stood in the hallway deciding whether anxiety counts as a sense. The next day, I watched her through a lens I hated. She was bright at breakfast and edgy by noon, texting more than usual and placing her phone face down each time she said it near me. At one point, she laughed at her screen, then caught herself and slid the phone into her pocket like she'd just remembered an appointment. When her sister called that evening, Isla took it outside. The patio door shut with a soft finality. "Work is intense," she said when she came back. I nodded. Wednesday, 2 a.m. I sat in the blue glow of my monitor and typed a search I never thought I'd type private investigator near me. The results looked like a confession. I clicked on a site for a man named Ray Hargrove, retired detective, 3 decades on the job, discreet consultations. He looked like the kind of person who would deliver bad news cleanly. I didn't book. I closed the browser and reopened it twice. Then I drafted an email, deleted it, and wrote again, this time with the kind of clarity that hurts. My name is Noah. I think my wife may be having an affair. I need to know the truth either way. I didn't sleep after sending it. In the morning, I shaved too carefully and made eggs I didn't eat. Isla breezed through the kitchen in navy, and confidence kissed my forehead and told me she'd be back Saturday. "We should look at cribs," she said. "This weekend," I asked. "This weekend," she promised, and then she was gone. Ray replied an hour later with 2 sentences, "And a meeting time coffee at 9 corner table, bring whatever dates you have." His brevity steadied me. Numbers, patterns, I could do that. I printed her travel calendar, gathered card statements, highlighted charges I couldn't place. I threw a jacket over a shirt I didn't remember buttoning and left 5 minutes early because I couldn't figure out what on earth it meant to be on time for this. The coffee shop was noisy enough to hide in and quiet enough to hear yourself become the kind of husband who hires a stranger to follow his wife. Ray arrived exactly at 9. Gray suit, scuffed shoes, eyes that looked at you and not through you. He shook my hand like he'd been doing it all his life. We talked. I listed the things that will always sound small because they aren't a smoking gun: the showers, the phone, the calendar entry for a hotel that keeps showing up on Fridays. Ray didn't roll his eyes. He wrote with a short pencil and interrupted only to ask precise questions, times, names, how long the new habits had been habits. When I finished, he nodded once. About 60% of the time, he said my clients are wrong. Stress new responsibilities, something private but not sinister. The other 40. He let the sentence sit between us. We handle it cleanly. I wanted him to tell me I was in the 60. Instead, I signed a short contract, paid a retainer from an account with my name alone, and handed him the folder I never wanted to assemble. He slid it into his bag like it weighed nothing at all. On the walk back to my car, the sky was bright. Life didn't pause. Mine felt tilted. Ray's first text came that evening, beginning surveillance Friday. "We'll update by message only. Keep routine normal." I read it twice and then deleted the thread so I wouldn't check it every 5 minutes. That night, Isla and I made dinner together as if we were a commercial for durable cookware. She told me about a colleague who misread a room, and I told her about a client who misread a line, and we laughed like people who still choose each other on purpose. When she reached for my hand, my own hand hesitated for a fraction of a second that felt like an alarm only I could hear. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. Both of us accepted the answer because it was easier than the question. Friday arrived like a test. She packed the bag with the same efficiency, the same blazer, the same scent. "I'll be back early Saturday," she said. "We can go look at that crib." "Text me when you get in," I replied, hating how the sentence sounded. Like I was asking permission to believe. After the door closed, I stood in the hallway and counted to 100. Around noon, Ray texted following target, downtown. More later. I put the phone face down and watched the light move across the floor like a slow clock. At dusk, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the corner where a crib might go. I tried to picture paint swatches and a mobile turning quietly in the dark. My throat tightened. The phone buzzed again. I didn't look. I wasn't ready yet to know which 60 I belonged to. Tonight, Ray's messages came in fragments, short, factual, and cold enough to make me shiver. Following target. Confirmed at Peninsula. Observation ongoing. I read those words again and again. Every text was a pin in my chest. Still, I went through the motions work Jim Grocery's dinner. I didn't want suspicion to become my full-time job. But by Friday night, I could barely breathe. At 9:14 p.m., Isla texted long day. Early start tomorrow. Miss you. I replied. Get some rest. Proud of you. Saturday morning, she came home smiling. She kissed my forehead, dumped her suitcase near the laundry, and headed straight for the shower. The sound of running water filled the house while I sat in silence staring at her travel mug still half full of coffee. When she came out, she wore a new sweatshirt, one I'd never seen before. Got it on sale, she said easily. I nodded, pretending I believed that. We went crib shopping that afternoon like a couple building a future. She laughed at a silly mobile shaped like planets and called me too serious. It was the same voice that used to make me melt. Now it just made me wonder if she practiced it somewhere else first. Ray didn't text again that weekend. No news was its own kind of news. By Wednesday, I couldn't take it anymore. I woke up at 2:00 a.m., grabbed my phone and saw her standing in the bathroom doorway whispering, Friday works. I can do Friday. I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. When she climbed into bed, I could still hear her heart pounding through the mattress. The next morning, I met Ray again. His office smelled like old coffee and cold rain. He didn't waste words. Noah, he said quietly, I think you should see this. He slid an envelope across the desk. Inside were photographs, grainy but unmistakable. Isla at the Peninsula Hotel. A tall man in a gray suit hand resting at the small of her back. Dinner, wine, a parking garage. Their faces close enough to erase the space between them. Ray's voice was calm but deliberate. His name's Logan Pierce, 28. Works at Meridian Marketing. Married 2 kids under 5. He laid out the pattern Tuesdays and Fridays for the last 4 months. Same hotel, same room block. Always the Peninsula. I've got records that suggest it started even earlier, he added. 7 months, maybe more. 7 months. That was when we started talking about baby names. When she'd placed my hand on her stomach and said, maybe soon, I stared at the photographs feeling something crack in my chest. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was an equation with hundreds of deliberate entries, every text, every lie, every I love you typed between meetings. Ray didn't try to comfort me. He just said there's another booking this Friday. Same room, same man, same everything. That sentence stayed in my head all night. When I got home, Isla was already there, cheerful humming while she folded laundry. You okay? She asked, noticing my quiet. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. She kissed me goodnight. I stared at the ceiling, the word Friday echoing like a ticking clock. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Dana Cole, calm and efficient. I brought the photos, the reports, every receipt Ray had given me. She looked through them silently, then said, This is definitive. You can file on grounds of adultery. No spousal support. Clean split. She leaned forward. But you need a plan. Don't confront her yet. Secure your finances. Document everything. And whatever happens, keep your emotions out of the paperwork. I nodded. Logic I understood. Feelings I didn't. That night, Isla cooked dinner salmon, her specialty. Guess what she said? I might be up for promotion next quarter. I smiled and said, you deserve it. She reached for my hand. We'll get there, you'll see. The word we sounded foreign. Thursday, she packed again. The same bag, the same perfume, the same lie. Back Saturday morning, she said, kissing my forehead, that ritual I used to love. Drive safe, I whispered. When the door shut, I texted Ray confirming Friday. I want access. He replied in seconds, confirmed. Room 847, meet 9:00 a.m. across the street. Then I called Isla's parents, Eleanor and Patrick. They'd always treated me like family. Can you both come over tomorrow morning, I asked. No one's hurt. But you need to see something before you hear her side. Eleanor hesitated. Isla, is she in trouble? Yes, I said quietly, but not the kind you think. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room looking at our wedding photo on the mantel, her in white laughing hand in mine. For the first time, I realized the smile had always been just slightly off, like she was already rehearsing for someone else's camera. I printed copies of Ray's photos and packed them in a folder. Then I made coffee strong enough to burn. Friday morning came clear and bright. Isla left at 8:30 sharp, bag rolling behind her. She waved from the driveway, smiling like nothing was wrong. At 9:00, her parents arrived, worried, confused. What's going on? Patrick asked. I placed the folder on the table. I love your daughter, I said, but she's not who you think she is. They flipped through the photos in silence. Eleanor's face went pale. Patrick's hands clenched into fists. Where is she right now? He demanded. The Peninsula Hotel, I said. Room 847. Eleanor whispered. What do you need us to do? Come with me, I answered. You need to see it with your own eyes. Patrick stood up. Let's go. The drive downtown was quiet. 3 people traveling toward the end of an illusion. When we reached the hotel, the air felt heavy. The marble lobby gleamed under soft lights designed for secrets. I met Ray outside the cafe across the street. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a master key card. You're sure? He asked. I'm sure, I said. My voice didn't shake. Then get in, get out, no drama, Ray warned. Just truth. We crossed the street. The elevator hummed as it climbed to the 8th floor. My pulse pounded in my ears. 847 waited at the end of the hallway. Patrick gave me a single nod, the kind that means whatever happens next, we face it. I slid the card through the reader. The light turned green. The door clicked open. And that was the moment everything in my life changed forever. The elevator hummed like it knew what was coming. I stood between Isla's parents, the air tight and wordless. Eleanor clutched her purse like it held her daughter's soul. Patrick's jaw was set, his hands rigid on either side. The hallway carpet swallowed our steps as we reached the end room 847. For a second, I thought about turning back. Maybe just walking away and mailing her the divorce papers. But then I remembered the countless forehead kisses the whispered were building our future, the nursery plans, and the soft lies that now sounded like echoes in an empty room. I slid the card through the reader. The light turned green. The door opened, and there she was. Isla froze mid-motion, tangled in sheets with a man whose face I now knew from the photos Logan Pierce, the competitor's golden boy. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. Then Isla's head snapped toward the door. Her face changed from confusion to terror to disbelief. Mom, Dad! Her voice cracked. She grabbed at the blanket, fumbling eyes wide. No, no, no! Patrick stepped in first. The Marine in him took over, steady, precise. Get up, he barked. Logan stumbled backward, pale and shaking. Wait, this isn't... Patrick didn't wait. He grabbed Logan by the collar and slammed him against the wall. You think this is a game? He shouted. Logan gasped, trying to speak. Sir, please. I didn't. Another thud. The picture frame rattled. Dad stopped. Isla screamed, half standing, half wrapped in a sheet. But Eleanor caught her arm, her own face, stone cold. Don't, she said. You did this. I stood at the foot of the bed, watching it unfold like an out-of-body moment. 9 years of marriage, hundreds of dinners, thousands of small lies, all distilled into one single ugly truth before me. Patrick let Logan go long enough for him to crawl toward the door, half-dressed and bleeding from his nose. If I ever see you near her again, Patrick growled, you won't walk away. Logan bolted, stumbling into the hallway, clutching his shirt. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence afterward was deafening. Isla collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Please, Tom, let me explain. There's nothing left to explain, I said quietly. Her tears came faster. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off. You made months of decisions. You made this. Patrick stood by the wall, breathing hard. Eleanor looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Why, Eleanor whispered. Why would you do this? Isla's voice broke. I don't know. It just happened. Patrick slammed his fist into the dresser. No, it doesn't just happen. You don't destroy your family by accident. She flinched. I picked up her phone from the nightstand. The lock screen lit up with a photo of us smiling, arms around each other, taken during our anniversary trip. I held it up to her. This was the version of us you kept for show, I said. The rest was just practice for him, wasn't it? Isla shook her head wildly. It's not like that. He said he loved me. I was confused. You don't get to blame confusion, I said flatly. You get to live with it. She crawled closer, grabbing my wrist. Please, Tom, we can fix this. I'll quit my job. I'll end everything with him. Please don't leave me. I pulled away. You ended this long before today. Eleanor sank into the chair near the window, covering her face. Patrick stared at his daughter like she was a stranger. You lied to all of us, he said. His voice cracked just slightly. Your mother, your husband, even yourself. Isla sobbed harder. Daddy, please. He didn't answer. I stepped toward the door. I'll pack your things, I said evenly. They'll be at your parents' house by tomorrow. Tom, she whispered. You should be thankful I brought witnesses, I said, because if I hadn't, you'd still be rewriting this story before I even made it home. Her shoulders shook. I love you, she said through tears. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I felt absolutely nothing. No, I said quietly. You loved the version of me that didn't know better. I turned the doorknob. Behind me, Eleanor whispered, Let's go. Patrick followed, still silent. We left her there, wrapped in white sheets that looked like a shroud, crying into the echo of her own lies. In the elevator, none of us spoke. The numbers glowed softly, 8, 7, 6, 5. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, I'd already called a locksmith. Outside, the sun was blinding. Cars honked, people laughed, and the world kept spinning, completely unaware that mine had just stopped. Patrick finally broke the silence. You want me to handle the rest? I shook my head. No, I'll take care of it. Eleanor touched my arm gently. I'm so sorry, Tom. Don't be, I said. You didn't betray me. We parted ways at the parking lot. I sat in my car for a long minute staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Not angry, not broken, just empty. When I got home, I went through every room like an auditor closing accounts. Her clothes, her files, her framed awards from work, every symbol of the life she'd built on my trust. I started boxing them up methodically, one after another. By sunset, the living room was lined with cardboard boxes labeled Isla. On top of the last one, I placed the wedding photo face down. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of pain, but because of clarity. There's a strange peace in finality when the guessing stops, when the lies have names and faces. I knew she would call. She did just after midnight. The phone lit up with her name. I let it ring. Then again, and again. Finally, I silenced it and whispered to the empty room. You wanted freedom, Isla. Now you have it. Then I turned off the light and sat in the dark, not mourning, not hating, just learning how silence can finally feel honest. The morning after the hotel incident, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Every corner carried an echo of her shoes by the door, her coffee mug still on the counter, the faint scent of her perfume hanging in the air. It was like living in a museum of betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just moved, slowly, methodically. I called my lawyer, Dana. It's done, I said. I caught her. In the act. There was a short pause. Do you have proof I have photos, witnesses, and her parents? Good, she said simply. Then we'll file first thing Monday. Don't contact her. Don't reply if she calls. Let her lawyer speak. I nodded, staring at the living room where her laughter used to bounce off the walls. It felt absurd that a marriage could end on a weekday like an appointment you forgot to cancel. By noon, Isla's parents showed up. Eleanor's eyes were red. Patrick looked 10 years older. She's at our place, he said quietly. Hasn't stopped crying. I didn't know what to say. Sympathy didn't fit anywhere in this story anymore. Eleanor hesitated. She knows it's over, Tom. She's broken. She should be, I said, voice flat. She broke everything else. Patrick looked down at his hands. She's our daughter, he murmured. I know, I replied. But she's not my wife anymore. They didn't argue. They just left a small box on the porch. Inside were my things, my watch, a book, a tie I'd given her on our anniversary, all neatly folded. She'd always been tidy, even in the destruction she caused. That evening I changed the locks. Watching the old key no longer fit was oddly satisfying, a mechanical symbol that the door to my old life had officially closed. The first night alone was quiet. Too quiet. I tried to eat, couldn't. Tried to sleep, couldn't. So I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, watching the streetlights blur into streaks of yellow. The next few days came and went like a strange dream. Dana handled the paperwork. I gave her everything: financial records, photos, statements from Isla's parents. She said, "You've built a perfect case. She'll have no leverage." It wasn't about leverage, though. It was about truth. By the end of the week, the divorce petition was filed. I signed my name without trembling. When the courier took the documents, I felt lighter. Not free, just less heavy. Then came the messages. First a text from Isla: "Please, Tom, talk to me." Then another: "I made a mistake. I'll do anything. Therapy, quitting, moving." I didn't reply. When that failed, she switched tactics. "You're destroying my life. Do you even care?" I stared at the words, then typed back one sentence: "You already did." Then I blocked her number. That same day, her company's HR department called my lawyer, confirming that Isla had been suspended pending an internal investigation. She had used company funds for client meetings that were actually her hotel stays. Dana said it could turn into a fraud case. By the weekend, gossip spread fast. Her colleagues whispered. Her boss distanced himself. The image of the polished professional she'd spent years building started to crumble fast and public. Her parents called again, apologizing through tears. She's not eating. She says she doesn't recognize herself. I didn't either. One evening, while cleaning the living room, I found her old planner under the couch. Inside, she'd written a quote months ago: "The greatest risk is never taking one." I laughed quietly. She'd taken one all right, and lost everything. Days turned into weeks. The lawyer finalized asset divisions: the house, the savings, the car. Everything tilted in my favor. No spousal support, no negotiation. The court saw the evidence, saw the pattern, and ruled swiftly. Isla showed up once unannounced. I opened the door to see her standing on the porch, thin eyes hollow. She held an envelope. "Please," she whispered, "just hear me out." I didn't. "Leave it," I said. "That's all you can do for me now." She nodded slowly, tears falling as she set the envelope down. After she left, I opened it. Inside was a letter, her handwriting neat, familiar, shaking. She wrote about guilt, confusion, how Logan had made her feel alive. She said she hated herself for it, that she wished she could take it back. The words were sincere, but sincerity doesn't undo months of deceit. At the bottom, she'd written, "I still love you even if I no longer deserve to say it." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. Love without respect is just noise. Months passed. The house grew quieter, but also cleaner, like grief was dust, and I was slowly sweeping it away. I started running again, picked up guitar lessons, reconnected with friends I'd ignored while living in her shadow. People told me I looked healthier. Maybe they were right. One afternoon, I received a call from Dana. "It's official," she said. "Divorce finalized." I closed my eyes and exhaled. "Thank you," I said. "It's done," she confirmed. "You can start fresh." I walked into what used to be our bedroom. Sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the empty wall where our wedding photo once hung. I replaced it with a framed print of a mountain range, something that didn't lie. That night, I slept for 8 uninterrupted hours for the first time in months. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You probably don't care, but Logan's wife filed for divorce, too. He lost his job. Everyone knows now. I deleted the message without replying. Justice wasn't mine to deliver, it simply arrived on time. For the first time since it all began, I made dinner for one and didn't feel lonely. I turned on the radio, laughed at something trivial, and realized I'd survived the worst day of my life. Not by forgiving her, not by forgetting, but by finally remembering who I was before I started apologizing for things I didn't do. And that was the beginning of something better, something honest. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.